But allow me to introduce now our first panel, which is about EU priorities in capacity building, and namely in the area of cybersecurity. A lot is happening there. EU is investing a lot of funds to capacity building in third countries. What are these priorities in this area, and how we should ensure this coordination and cooperation that was also mentioned by Hilde Hardeman? That's the essence of the discussion that we are going to see now. But before that, I also would like to highlight that your active engagement is really appreciated. I mean, hashtag EU CyberNet Conf 2021, please use it. And secondly, during the panel, you will have an opportunity to ask questions, and we can take questions from the audience, and we can take questions also through the platform worksup.com/EU CyberNet. So please log in and try to actively engage to the discussion. All right, before we start with the panel, I have the honor of introducing Mr. Wiktor Staniecki, who is serving as a Deputy Head of Security and Defense Division at the European External Action Service, and where he also previously worked as the Head of Cyber Sector. Wiktor will give us a kind of a short introductory presentation on the topic on main challenges with capacity building. Wiktor, I would really appreciate if you could come on the floor, and the floor is yours. So thank you very much, and please.
Thank you very much for the organizers for inviting me to this conference, and warm welcome to all of you, both here in the beautiful studio, but also online. Let me give you a little bit of a tour d'horizon, a scene setter before we start with the panel. I have been asked to talk about challenges to cyber capacity building. But before I do that, this needs also a certain context and background, where we are and where we came from. The global, and it will come not as a surprise what I'm going to tell at the beginning, that the global open internet has become one of the backbones of our societies. It offers a platform that drives connectivity and economic growth, but also social well-being. At the same time, the more society become connected and reliant on digital technologies, the more important role of cybersecurity it plays. The cyber threat landscape has significantly evolved as well due to the geopolitical dynamics and the increasing dependency on technologies. This, in turn, has led to a need for stronger global cyber resilience and the ability of all actors, including states, to effectively respond and recover from cyber threats. Geopolitical tensions and the ever-increasing effort by some states to further control the internet and cyberspace can lead to further fragmentation, instability, and raises the risk of conflict. As well, with the increasing dependency on digital technologies and the growing battle of narratives happening in the cyberspace and the geopolitical tensions that I mentioned, the importance of the role of cyber capacity building could not be greater. However, cyber capacity building is not a standalone activity, and it needs to be seen as a part of a wider cyber policy framework. It's closely embedded into all EU cybersecurity policies and instruments. The EU has started to invest in cyber capacity building already since 2010, with more systematic work in linking its actions with the development cooperation funds. This has been further solidified with the adoption of the first cybersecurity strategy in 2013. The EU's investment in external cyber capacity building has been significant, and EU have been a major player in that scene on the global arena, providing cyber capacity building for quite some time. EU cyber capacity building programs have been launched all over the world. The strong institutional framework for external capacity building supports this work. The 2013 cybersecurity strategy that I have mentioned was an important milestone, acknowledging the role of cyber capacity building as a long-term commitment to increase global cyber resilience, and defined the EU's core values and principles for cyber capacity building, which apply to all activities the EU undertakes, both in the internal and external dimension. Furthermore, the Council conclusions on cyber diplomacy adopted in 2015 has been linking cyber capacity building strongly with the efforts of the EU towards the promotion and protection of human rights and fundamental rule of law, security, growth and development, and fundamental freedoms. The EU external cyber capacity building guidelines, which have been adopted in 2018, further define the scope, principles, priorities, and approach for the EU's engagement with third countries in the area of cyber capacity building, reiterating the EU's core values and principles for cybersecurity that should serve as the underlying framework for any external capacity building action, to ensure that it incorporates the understanding that the existing international law and the norms of responsible state behavior apply in cyberspace, that it is rights-based and gender-sensitive by design, with safeguards to protect the fundamental freedoms and fundamental rights, that it promotes the democratic and efficient multi-stakeholder internet governance model, that it supports the principle of open access to the internet, that it adopts a shared responsibility approach which ensures the involvement of public authorities, the private sector, and citizens, and promotes international cooperation. However, next to the developments at the policy level, the work on the ground has also significantly evolved, and the currently ongoing cyber capacity building programs amount roughly to 125 million euros. But what is the way forward, and what are the challenges ahead of us? So the new financial framework that has been adopted for the years 2021-2027 came with the new financial instrument, the Neighborhood Development and International Cooperation Instrument, NDC, which merged several current external financing instruments under the EU budget. It is a Global Europe instrument to support EU's external actions with 3 pillars: geographic, thematic, and also rapid response pillar. It is the first year of its implementation, but this is a step towards eliminating fragmentation in achieving the EU's external assistance objectives. With this new instrument, and considering the current threat landscape and growing level of digitalization, the EU needs, however, to commit sufficient funding for cyber capacity building, as the gap is considerable, and the effect that affects also the effectiveness and performance of our actions. The new cybersecurity for digital decade that Hilde has mentioned already, adopted in 2020, in December 2020, so nearly a year ago, is committed to continue supporting our partners in increasing their cyber resilience and capacities, but also puts forward 2 concrete actions, which should play a significant role in driving and enhancing the scale and effectiveness of EU's cyber capacity building activities. First of that has been mentioned by the previous speakers, is to develop an EU external cyber capacity building agenda to ensure overall coherence of actions. The agenda should also ensure of efficient and coherent programming of cyber capacity building, which is a key element and point. It should also be policy-driven, so taking into account and bringing together all relevant policies, priority-driven on countries, regions, topics, and as well needs-driven on building on the needs of recipients. In addition, an EU, as a second action, an EU cyber capacity building board is to be created, which encompasses relevant EU institutions, institutional stakeholders, to coordinate, monitor progress, as well as identify further synergies and potential gaps. With these proposed initiatives by the new strategy, we hope to see positive developments and further improvements in our actions. So in conclusion, let me come back briefly to some of the challenges that have been mentioned by previous speakers. I think coordination is one of the key challenges, obviously. Comes also coordination in terms of our external and internal efforts. We need to enhance our efficiency, effectiveness, and impact of the assistance that we are providing. With the increasing number of cyber threats, we need to as well increase financial allocations for cyber programs, linking this with digitalization programs. All of that has to be sustainable, so we have to also think about sustainability of our actions. We need to develop and nurture further EU cyber expertise, as there is not enough and there are substantial gaps still there. We need to ensure coherence with EU policies and strategic goals. We need to streamline some related processes. And as well, last but not least, improve research and analysis on this topic to better inform EU's further cyber capacity building actions. So with that, Sincere, I would like to thank all of you and give the floor back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wiktor. It was a great pleasure of having you here, and thank you for this scene setter. I believe it really clearly demonstrates that EU has all the right means and the will when it comes to strategy and priorities. Now the question remains how to implement it and how to ensure this coordination and cooperation that we are all seeking for. And that's what our panel is all about. So basically, the panel will be focusing on the top priorities and also on the fact on how to have really the impact on the ground. Before we go into the panel with very distinguished guests that we have here, I just wanted to remind you that we have an environment, worksup.com/EU CyberNet, where you can log in and ask questions. And if you don't dare to raise your hand here in the room, I mean, you can do it online, so feel free to do that. And during the panel discussion, we will take some questions also from the audience. But going now further with the panel, I have truly an honor to welcome here representative from the Slovenian presidency and a very high-level representative, an ambassador to BSC, or Political Security Committee, Ms. Veronika Bošković-Pohar, who was appointed to this responsible task in January 2021. Next to her, we have in the panel Mr. Thierry Barbé, who is currently head of Unit for Science, Technology, Innovation and Digitalization at the Directorate-General for International Partnerships in the European Commission. Also, our third panelist is Mr. Jesper Pedersen, who works in the European Commission's Service for Foreign Policy Instruments as Deputy Head of Unit in FBI1 on Global Threats. And last but not least, we have also a representative from the industry or NGO side. We have Mr. Csaba Virág, who is currently the Director of Capacity Building at Talgen Cybersecurity in Estonia, and who is focusing on developing and delivering high-impact cyber resilience at large via enabling organizations and governments to leverage on digital transformation at their maximum potential. So with this small introduction, I would kindly ask all the participants who are present here to on the floor and warm welcome to you. Voila, so here we are. Thanks for joining us. Really good to have you here, and really good to meet you face to face as well. So maybe just to kick off with more political scene setter, a question to dear Ambassador Veronika. Is cybersecurity recognized as a global challenge today? I mean, do you feel this at your daily work, that this is an issue where, I mean, ministers and other ambassadors pay a lot of attention, or this is still a techie business which is left for the IT community?
Good morning first, and thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you for this honor to have the first question. I would like to thank also my team who's here. Stasha Novak, she's our presidency, the one to really push and boost forward the agenda of the presidency. But to answer to your question, of course, it's a global challenge, and from our perspective, I'm representative to the Political and Security Committee. As you know, we are dealing with a common foreign and security policy and common defense and security policy. And cyber security is really the common challenge we are facing. What we are doing now in this strategic level, on the level of the presidency, of course, but also I think European Union and colleagues we can come forward and complement what I'm saying. What we are building now in European Union is also one of our priorities, building resilience of the European Union. Cyber is really, as you mentioned in intro, Wiktor mentioned, a global challenge. Our economies are really based on digital transformation showed that not only the need to build digital and cyber, but also the vulnerability we have. From my point of view, what we are doing now is really building less dependency on digital and building resilience and, of course, security, because it's not only about security, it was mentioned, security of our institutions, our government, EU institution, but it's also about security of our citizens, and we have to deliver. It's also all about trust, you know. And cyberspace is one of Slovenian presidency priorities. We have a multifaceted, of course, approach. It's about building resilience and security, as I said, of citizens first. Also, child abuse is very important. Building standards. You know that EU is, I think EU is really a standard builder in international community, and we are a community of values, of human rights, and we not only export that, but we build, and it's our job concerning the presidency. I can also tell you what we are doing very concretely in practice. One is cyber resilience, as mentioned, and the other crisis management. What we are doing, we adopted on the 19th of October the conclusions on exploring potential joint cyber unit initiative. I think it's a very concrete initiative, and I thank again my team and the presidency who is here. They're really pushing forward. The aim of that is really that the EU is prepared to deploy a unit, people who are able to really deter or react on a cyber attack. One important thing, it's also exercising what we are doing. It's important to build interoperability in European Union, but also with our partners. Probably I will come back to the point when you are talking about when we will talk about how to build capacity of neighborhood of partners, but only to say that it's one of our priority on on the level of the working group, of PSC, my committee, of course, COREPER, and also, as you heard, ministers level. When we built also the strategic compass, you probably heard, it's all about building capacities, capabilities, but also building partnerships, how to build our security in the cyberspace and our resilience. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. I've noticed a lot. I mean, that cyber and digitalization is very high in the agenda for the Slovenian presidency, and I achieved a lot. I also had an opportunity to take part of the discussions on the AI-related follow-ups, and then in a different domain. So, I mean, very well done. And I have also an impression that there is a kind of a political appetite for discussions on the cybersecurity level. But following up with the same question to Thierry, I mean, how do you see this from the Commission side? I mean, is cybersecurity also recognized as a global challenge now, or and with a kind of a really big political debate backing it?
Oh, I can say a big yes. Just looking at the Council conclusions from the latest EU summit, where cybersecurity was highlighted. Just looking also at the way the US is looking for partnership on cybersecurity with the EU, but and also with all the investment aspiration in the digitalization and digital transformation agenda that are highlighting the cyber weaknesses and enhance the cybersecurity needs. I must say that in a way we are trying to address that, but it is reaching.
Sorry, I mean, it seems that we have a little trouble with the mic, but. It's an elegant example how important is digitalization nowadays. I mean, that you don't have a voice if you are not connected. But please, back to you, Thierry.
I must say that how to address it in an international forum. The UN systems is not yet well placed to address it. And notably, for instance, the International Telecommunication Union is not in a position to help us develop standardization and regulations. But on the contrary, we are invited to look at cybersecurity whenever we are intervening in the digital transformation with our partner countries. And the partner countries, they are really also looking for true partnerships on cybersecurity. The demand is high, and they keep asking us to do more. So, in a way, beyond the current press frenzy about cybersecurity, there is a true demand for capacity building. So for me, we are going to be in a position to provide something that is meaningful within the various instruments we are having that have been presented by my previous colleagues and by Her Excellency the Ambassador.
Thanks for that. I mean, just from the practitioner side, I mean, Csaba, how do you see, I mean, how COVID-19 has really impacted this appetite for digitalization and cybersecurity? I mean, do you have a bigger workload now, I mean?
On Csaba?
Csaba, yes.
Oh, Csaba, we've been working with Csaba for many years, and I hope it had a nice impact in countries we are covered by Csaba. But I couldn't say more about it.
All right. Well, the question was more to Csaba on your right hand.
But we have a problem.
Okay.
There is something, sorry.
Don't worry.
Csaba is something that's relevant for cybersecurity, by the way.
Good to note as well.
I think globally we advanced 5 years in digitalization and digital transformation overall, and naturally this drew more attention on cybersecurity aspects. And I think this also highlights the the future ahead of us, how we are all responsible, both as organization, as nation, and as individuals, to develop a better cybersecurity approach and have cybersecurity there as an enabler for us to conduct our work or whatever that we do in the digital era. And to have a little bit of parallelism with COVID-19, I think COVID-19 and cybersecurity have very, very much similarities in place. So we're talking about a virus that can be killed by soap, and yet the whole world is under lockdown. And the majority of the cybersecurity threats are very much relying on basic cyber hygiene approaches and the overall mindset, how we approach technology and how we get attached to technology. So I think it brought, it's a sad situation where we are, yet in the digital transformation and in the cybersecurity aspect, I think it enabled us to focus and innovate faster or implement certain decisions and technologies faster than we would have liked to. And there's yet a lot of work to be done, but we're getting there.
Mm. Yes, indeed. We have with us also Jesper Pedersen from European Commission. I mean, we see you very well. It's nice and sunny in your office, and you have a very lovely map behind you as well, illustrating that how global the cybersecurity challenge is. Maybe you could say a few words. I mean, from your point of view and from the institutional point of view, what are the main challenges and opportunities that digitalization will bring? And maybe also highlight your perspective, I mean, how COVID-19 has impacted your activities and projects under your responsibility. Over to you, Jesper.
Sure. Thank you. Just a sound check first. Do you hear me?
Very well, loud and clear.
Good. Thank you, and apologies for not being able to be with you in the room today. I'm very happy that our colleague Andrei Vosatka, who leads on our cybersecurity portfolio, is able to be in the room with you today. I think I will join Veronika and of course also Thierry in confirming how we absolutely see cybersecurity as a global challenge, and I think that's also recognized in the two most recent EU cybersecurity strategies back from 13 and 20, which clearly recognize that cybersecurity is a global challenge. It has interconnections to all sectors and spheres, because everything, of course, is digital now, and I don't to say that in this room, but it makes us all potentially vulnerable. And of course, there's no physical distance in cyberspace. You can easily be attacked from hacked computers on different continents. So in that sense, we are all neighbors when it comes to cyberspace. It also means that it's in our interest to strengthen cybersecurity in third countries. It's not purely a developmental altruism. It strengthens our own security also at home. So it avoids digital technologies being used to attack us or anybody else for that matter. And it helps, of course, also countries to share electronic evidence, for example, globally. So it is a truly global challenge. And as Hilde also said in her keynote opening speech, we've invested a lot of money, more than 100 million euro over the last decade on digitalization. And in this new digital decade, as we call it, there will be even more attention to digitalization and the fact that Thierry is with us and the importance that his role also plays in under international partnerships, I think is a good reflection of the importance that the EU is giving to this looking forward. It's fair to say that we have recognized the challenge and that we're mobilizing and professionalizing capacities, both to deal with this very complex and challenging task, but also, of course, recognizing that it takes time to achieve visible and tangible effects on the ground. It's not cyber is not one of the newest disciplines in international cooperation, but yet. It's only started, say, 2 decades ago, with a focus on fighting cybercrime primarily, while cyber resilience only came later. So we're still learning, and it's therefore also important that we have discussions like this one today to exchange on our best strategies, on best practices or good practices at least, and also approaches to cyber capacity building. You asked about the role of COVID, and I think that the work that both ENISA and CERT-EU and Europol EC3 have done clearly provides evidence that the appetite for digitalization and cyber has only increased during these last 18 months. At the moment, it's a practical need rather than just an appetite. The pandemic has clearly accelerated the usage of digital tools, and the other side of the equation is of course an increased need for cybersecurity. Let me stop there and happy to jump in later if possible. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jesper. I mean, really, we all see the challenges. I mean, the cybersecurity landscape is very, very colorful. I mean, you have many actors there, including, I mean, in the EU area, but you have UN, you have international organizations taking part of it. And I mean, the challenges are also very, very different. I mean, depending on the region, depending on the specific needs on the ground. Maybe on these priorities and also on the capacity building projects in third countries. I mean, if you take a Slovenian presidency, for example, I know that the Slovenian presidency has put a lot of focus on the neighborhood and also to the Western Balkan countries. Veronika, what do you see? I mean, what should be the kind of top EU priorities in the area of cybersecurity, and which region EU should put the main focus of its efforts?
Thank you for the question. As you said before, it's a global challenge. Of course, our presidency is putting forward the priority of the neighborhood. It's not. I think it's not a surprise that our priority is immediate neighborhood. But when we talk about cyber threats, it's a global challenge, and we should not forget also the private sector. They're the one first. They're the one to mostly produce threats, and also it's a very important. You mentioned before the AI challenge. Maybe we'll come after on this topic if there will be possibility. But you know that the private sector is also the hub for really the development of artificial intelligence, and governments are really. It's important to have a right partnership with the private sector as well. We can notice that, for example, I mentioned before, but it's only an example of child abuse. You know, the private sector, for example, from US, they have a lot of experience in that, and I think it's important to link to see the best practice, to have this really approach, linking governments, NGOs, of course, civil society, platforms as this one, to really map. But to come back to your question, I'm sorry, I'm not following always instructions. It's not good for my job. The main priorities of the Slovenian presidency in capacity building, as you mentioned, for us, a neighborhood would be is what we push forward as a priority. Why? Because of course our economic links are mostly in the neighborhood. For us, only to say a few, to map few examples on the Western Balkans, you mentioned. We have managed to push for mapping of existing EU initiatives at the level of the Commission and External Service, which lead to a more strategic action in the region. From my point of view, what we would need is also to link, as you know, military and civilian capacities. What we would like to see, but not only in Western Balkans, it's also in eastern part of neighborhood, is really building capacity on cyber defense. in my field of defense and security, because mostly, for example, in my country, most of our infrastructure, digital, is also on dual use. I think it's very important to have this integrated approach. The other, because you know that we are also in trio with Portugal and Germany, what is also very important and the global challenge we have with cyber, we also tackle Africa. You know that it's a very enthusiastic continent. Digital is really important to tackle not only digital divide, gender and digital gaps, but also cyber capacity building. I think that a few days ago in Kigali, I'm under authority of the chair. She's there, and she's really looking to me. I'm speaking under her authority. I think that in Kigali, I think the first time cyber was also included in the statement. I think it's important to push forward with Africa, but also with other continents. Of course, here we have some instruments. I mentioned EPF, European Peace Facility. What we are doing now, we are really building, we are taking first actions on the European Peace Facility under this framework, but also the Commission will have to, the Commission is the one to really implement on the ground with Team Europe initiatives. The delegations have a very important role. I think it's really important, as you said, not only to coordinate, to really come together and to coordinate among institutions on the action on the ground. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Just continuing from the same way with the Commission. I mean, we all learned from Wiktor's presentation that there is a clear-cut strategy now set. I mean, we have also Council conclusions. I mean, European Council conclusions. So, how do you see it? I mean, the priorities from the Commission point of view? I mean, where should you focus on this? Where we look at the cybersecurity capacity building, I mean, what could be the most relevant for us?
It could be everywhere, but at least we want to be sure it is included in all the digital labeled programs. As you know, digital transformation agenda is now at the heart of the partnership we are developing with Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and Asia. In INTPA, I won't speak about neighborhood, but it was done already. And we ensured that digital transformation intervention are programmed. And now we are happy to say that in most of African countries, there will be intervention related to digital transformation agenda. I'm happy also to say that in the regional programming for Sub-Saharan Africa, a big chunk of resources is reserved for that. What will these resources contribute to? First and foremost, to bridge the digital divide by bringing in all the intervention on the governance side, on the skills side, and on the connectivity side, on high-value investments. And in doing so, we are invited, and we invited our partners for this preparation within delegation, partner countries, and so to incorporate cybersecurity dimensions in digital governance, in e-governance intervention, and in digital skills and in the education system, as well on all the connectivity and data investment that we are preparing. So in a way, it is by default in this field, but our aim is to go further and make it available for all the interventions, because what we see that digitalization is pervading in the cooperation field, and every intervention, be it on climate change, health, access to financing, has a digital dimension, and therefore has a potential cybersecurity dimension. And this we have not reached. I think we should start talking to other people within the house because they have a stake as well. So it's not easy. We are quite committed now to a digital transformation agenda, but all the digital services that are attached to our cooperation have to incorporate a cybersecurity dimension.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think comparison that you made with the climate change is really accurate in the sense that, I mean, it's a global challenge and there's no specific region you can focus on. Everybody has to do its utmost to tackle this challenge. And then the same probably applies also to cybersecurity, where we have to have different measures for different regions. But giving, I mean, the fact that, I mean, challenges that were mentioned by Jesper and also by Wiktor and many others today. We have one question also from the audience here, what I can see from Workshop. It's basically about how to ensure better implementation of the projects. And I mean, the question is basically that there is the saying that we are only as strong as our weakest link. And in this regard, what could be seen as the weakest link today? And what do you see as concrete next step to tackle this problem? I mean, when it comes to the implementation of capacity building projects in third countries. I mean, Csaba, you have been on this area for some time now from the practitioner's point of view. I mean, what do you see, I mean, that needs to be done with the challenges?
Yes, thank you. I think third countries are a really interesting area, not just because they are a little bit less developed than Europe, or actually that's not always true, but the fact that digitalization spread faster than the knowledge accompanying it is posing a very special risk to everyone. And you all know the saying, cybersecurity is a cross-border domain. So, you know, if something happens in Africa, most probably we will feel it in Europe as well. But the main challenges are actually harmonizing the technological aspects, the human aspects, and the legislative aspects. So legislative aspects are regularly lagging behind the technological advantage and the implementation on the field. So technology is being rolled out by industry. It's a lot faster than actual human beings can understand what they are using, and especially a lot faster than legislative procedures can accompany it or can create some kind of safe environment around it. Maybe the best example for this is privacy in the realm of social media. Everybody was happy to share, and then after 5 years, people realized that it might not be such a good idea. But we have already 5 years, 10 years of data available at companies not really following European regulations and legislations. And the issue in Africa, or not just Africa, but in third countries as a whole, and capacity development especially, I think is, and the implementation challenges is this, that technology is there. They wish to enhance their capabilities. They wish to get the newest technology, which makes sense. They are developing their infrastructure now, so they should get the best and newest technology because that will be the future-proof or the most future-proof currently. But the knowledge sharing and the knowledge building blocks are not necessarily in place. And obviously the legislative background in certain countries are not necessarily based on same democratic values as the EU shares. So this knowledge transfer coming from the EU on a global scale has its very unique background. We have the experience from well or better developed countries. Maybe I can mention the Nordic areas compared to some of the eastern or southern areas of Europe, who have a little bit different approach to how to incorporate technology in everyday life. And we have all aspects. And I can tell you this as a Hungarian living in Estonia, working on global cybersecurity issues, both in the civilian and in the military domain, that the issues are more or less similar everywhere. It's about having the right technology, but being challenged how to use it properly, and then trying to understand that which part of a legislative background actually makes sense and should be followed, and which part is a legacy, a heritage piece of component written by somebody 5 years ago that should be disregarded. But everything takes a lot of time. even in the EU, even in the third countries, policy changes might take up to 2 to 5 years. But in 2 to 5 years, just imagine what kind of technology you have been using 5 years ago, and where is technology now? And we are already discussing AI, we're discussing quantum computing, we're discussing edge computing, hyper performance, and we just simply need to catch up with the cybersecurity aspects.
Yeah, please.
Can I only a few seconds? Because it's a very interesting question, implementation. What is very important and what we are doing is really to build interoperability. I think it's very important to if you want to implement, colleague said, legal standards, of course, legislative framework, of course, but how to put it in practice and how to build, maybe even build the practice. Interoperability, how to build interoperability. It's very important in cyber, I think the most important is to have common exercises. It's what our presidency is really working on cybersecurity, common exercise, to have a common approach, to build a common approach, common understanding, and then of course common reaction. And I think the main point here is really to build all those three pillars, and with common exercises is really how to be able to prevent and mostly to react. And I think it's the main point of implementation, to really build this interoperability among actors and.
Indeed. I mean, maybe Thierry, I mean, a question to you. I mean, what I picked from Csaba's intervention was also the fact that we cannot help absolutely everyone on global scale. I mean, we have to focus a little bit on the like-minded countries, because we can't imagine really that we are going to provide some capacity building initiatives in Communist Republic of China or North Korea or some other regions which have completely different understanding of the cyberspace and the interventions there. So I think some focus is certainly needed, and I mean some respect of or sharing common values with the EU is a kind of a fundamental prerequisite for capacity building initiatives. Or how do you see it, Thierry? I mean, it's easy to say, but difficult to implement in practice.
Well, it's difficult to identify the like-minded partners that are in between, and many of the countries we are partnering with may highlight the shared value with the EU is promoting, but in practice may have a different approach. So for us, it is really about promoting the EU value, and the digital transformation agenda is a way to promote it. And we are also promoting an internet and safe and resilient open internet, and in doing so, we are ensuring the values are shared. Whatever we do, we don't want it, the technology to be abused in a direction that is not aligned with our values. But how to implement that's a real question, but you should know more than me about it, at CyberNet. My feeling is that the very limiting factor is knowledge, general knowledge, and expertise. And therefore, in my unit, there were no assigned expert for 6 months, maybe or even almost a year. Although it was, we drew from the expertise from people in the unit like Katja and other, but it was not built in, and we had difficulties in identifying the expert just to work with us. So expertise, build expertise. The problem, as you say, that the digital agenda is to a certain extent taking up the expertise without letting it switch to cybersecurity. And so I would pay a lot of attention to the expertise aspect.
Yeah, maybe over to Jesper as well for a while. I mean, so it would not be too boring in the office. Just maybe as a follow-up here to the discussion, Ambassador mentioned that exercises could be one very important element, as well as interoperability. How do you see, I mean, from the practical point of view of implementation of these projects that are under your responsibility? I mean, where the focus should be? I mean, what exactly is needed on the ground? Where should we focus with the cybersecurity projects, capacity building projects?
Thanks. Thanks for giving me the opportunity again. I think just to pick up on what Thierry mentioned, he hits it. How do you say this? He hits it right on the nail in terms of emphasizing the challenges that exist in terms of knowledge and expertise, and when if you look at the area of knowledge, the importance of coordination and of course coherence and planning is crucial. That applies to cyber, but also in many other areas we work, and it requires a lot of attention, not only of internally within the EU, but also with external partners. So not only between our various instruments in Brussels and different services, but also with other partners, whether it's our EU member states or externally. When it comes to that, I think the Cyber Capacity Building Board and the agenda will be helpful in this regard. It will allow us to have a platform also for coordination meetings. And I would also say that now that we've just completed one mapping, and hopefully that contributes also to our knowledge, our common knowledge, we need to be able to ensure a continued mapping to know who's doing what and how we can each and every one of us complement each other. We also need to be better, smarter at providing cyber capacity building, and for that reason we are rolling out this training platform. Hilde mentioned it in her opening speech, and this is a training course that we've done similar things on counterterrorism and on the prevention of violent extremism, and we would also like to do it in the area of cyber capacity building, training our colleagues, whether it's in delegations or in headquarters. What are we talking about? How do we address the issues? What's the EU policy in the area? And we would also very much welcome our partners, whether it's EU member states in the various countries where we will do the training, or other partners to join in. I think this is very, very important. And then we also have a challenge in terms of the implementation, and that's the area of expertise that Thierry mentioned. We have a challenge in finding the right experts, and of course the network is a product of that challenge, and why we created the network in the first place. So these are some of the challenges and some of the sort of consequences of it, and what we're doing about it, that I wanted to share with colleagues in the room and virtually. Thanks.
Yes, thanks, Jesper, really for touching the elephant in the room. I think it's really important in terms of implementation as well to ensure that, I mean, we get out of this type of silos. I mean, that we really build the bridges between different actors and different units also within the Commission. I mean, I think there are many different entities which are operating with capacity building projects and initiatives. So maybe a brief question as we are quite in the end of the session. I mean, so very briefly to Csaba, to you. I mean, how should we bring down this type of silos? I mean, how to reach to a kind of common and coordinated policy when it comes to capacity building?
I would take the opportunity to bridge all the different comments on this, and actually highlight the importance of doing the assessment right. So when cybersecurity capacity building efforts are putting in place, barely it's the case that there has been an assessment done for real. And exercises, by for real I mean that actual hands-on expertise or experience where we are in the stage of cyber resilience. I mean, we can say that, okay, we don't have firewalls, we don't have the filters right, we don't have the right people, we cannot conduct ethical hacking or whatever. So we can have all these silos there. But when it comes to raising cyber resilience, it's a joint effort. So we have to make these different silos work together. And in order to understand what is not working together, exercises indeed are the best way to understand what is the current stage of resilience. What is the performance capability of a given organization, let it be a military, let it be a smaller or large scale or a critical infrastructure sector as a whole. And once we do that, we have the strategic map at the end that this is what we do right, this is what we do not so right, and this is the room we need to improve. And having not only technical people, but also policymakers, strategy, decision makers on board in these exercises and being challenged by the tasks that normally they would not be challenged. And in Estonia, 2007, I'm not sure if you are aware that there was a decision-making point who is allowed to turn off or switch off the Estonia from the global internet. A task asked, and that was a solution, but it was not exercised before. So obviously it created a little bit of delay in handling the problem. But that was a radical...
That was a long time ago, indeed.
It was a long time ago, but still, and there are these challenges. So I would say that doing the assessments right, implementing exercises, and having the right strategy stretched out in time, cybersecurity will be solved over time. It takes a couple of years to have everything implemented.
Thanks for that. I mean, very quick question, just 1 minute for both of you. I mean, Thierry and Veronika, I mean, what would you expect from EU CyberNet? How this could help your daily work with common security and defense policy and with common foreign policy? Thierry.
In short words, then, very simply, based on the cyber assessment you mentioned by Csaba, I would highlight the need to develop with partner countries cyber strategies and start implementing them.
So needs-based and mapping at first?
Yeah, policy-based.
Policy-based.
Not only with technicians, with policymakers, lawmakers, and fancy.
All right, and last word for you, Veronika. What are your expectations? The EU CyberNet, have you heard it before?
Yes, I heard it before. But from my colleague, no, I heard it. But she's the one to really, she's really promoting EU CyberNet. No, I think it's an important, a really important platform, first to exchange views, to have a common approach, to assess, as you said, but also to map what we can bring on the table. One very, I think, special role is also to bring actors like-minded, as you said, to really have a common, to build standards. We were not able to touch upon artificial intelligence and emerging technologies, but also what is very important is to have dialogue with less like-minded countries. We should not forget that, again, if we can build interoperability with like-minded partners, I'm talking about UN, NATO, values, building values, and it's important to have dialogue with less like-minded, and I think your platform can be used for that as well, and it would be very useful for us.
Excellent. Thanks for that, and also thanks for the Slovenian presidency for all the effort in the digitalization domain. We were running a little poll here as well with the audience, so I don't know if this could be visualized. Yes, indeed. What we were asking from the audience was that what should be the policy areas in EU external cyber capacity building, or the top priority areas, as you can see, I mean, there's no kind of one one answer to that. I mean, most of the areas assisted or provided here is the technical assistance, policy and legislation, network security, awareness raising and prevention, alignment with EU standards. I mean, all of these were also mentioned during our discussion, and it seems that we have to pay proper attention to all of that during our projects. We also learned that there is a very good understanding at EU level, I mean, on the priorities and how to cooperate with third countries, putting them in different contexts and respecting the needs on the ground. And this should be a policy-driven process, as was mentioned by Thierry several times. And several marks were made also from Veronika about the fact that interoperability exercises are this practical way forward with building the resilience. So to conclude here, I would like to thank you, the panelists, for your time and for your very interesting input. Also, thank you, Jesper, to you and we will see in the future. I think we had a good understanding on where do we stand with the current setup. We also recognize that there are many challenges ahead with the implementation, and one of the key aspects is bringing down the silos between different actors and bringing them together. That's all what EU CyberNet is all about. It's building the community and trying to match the expectations and the needs in third countries. So thank you very much, and allow me to tell the audience that there will be now a coffee break, well-deserved, 10 minutes. So be back sharp in 10 minutes, and we will continue with the next panel. So thank you very much. It was a pleasure.